This is MAN 558, Organizational Psychology. Today we are going to look at behavioral modification and performance management. The behavior modification approach provides an effective managerial tool that explains and predicts work performance. Its objective is to maintain the desired employee behavior or to bring about change in employee behavior in order that the established task of the work unit is efficiently accomplished. The behavior modification approach uses operant conditioning whose fundamental processes are unconcerned with or are outside the sphere of cognition. The overriding principle involved in operant conditioning is the future occurrence of a behavior is a function of the environmental consequences that it brings about the generates. One of the principal sources of competitive advantage for an organization is the efficient and productive use of its human resources. In fact, the proper utilization of human resources is often considered to be the primary task of management. It is for this reason that the term management has been utilized as the process of getting things done through controlling, changing, and predicting the behavior of employees. The effective management of employees primarily involves two sets of managerial actions. One, to identify and maintain the appropriate work behaviors that are conducive and accomplishing organizational objectives. And the second, to modify or extinguish inappropriate work behaviors that hinder or impede the attainment of organizational objectives. The process of behavioral modification. We constantly respond to and cope with the demands of our physical and social environment. While interacting with the environment, we learn to emit or use specific patterns of behavior that are beneficial to us and learn to drop those patterns of behavior that either have harmful effects or no consequence for us. Operant conditioning deals with the process of learning voluntary behavior as opposed to the reflexive or non-voluntary behavior in our day-to-day lives. The environmental consequences associated with our voluntary behaviors lead to our learning, that is to repeat or modify the voluntary behaviors in the future. The learning of behavior in this manner is called operant, because the voluntary behavior becomes the operant, the instrument that leads to an environmental consequence. The overriding principle that explains the operant conditioning process is that the present and future occurrence of a behavior is a function of the consequences that it brings about or generates. The analysis of behavior under operant conditioning should be based on three observable elements. One, A, the antecedent environmental event, and second, B, the behavioral or operant, and third, C, the consequence of the behavior. The antecedent environmental event acts only as a stimulus cue that triggers a given behavior. However, it is the consequence that results from the behavior that controls the future occurrence of the behavior. In other words, the frequency of occurrence of a behavior in the future depends upon the results associated with that behavior in the past. This implies that, in order to understand employee behavior in response to the work environment, we must consider three questions. 1. What triggers the behavior? And 2. What is the behavior? And third one is, what are the consequences of the behavior? The process of behavior modification involves controlling two types of contingencies: the antecedent environmental event to the behavior or operant, and the behavior or operant to the consequence of the behavior. To control the antecedent environmental event to the behavior or operant contingency, it is necessary to know what stimulus cue triggers the behavior. For instance, when a manager sets the task goal and notifies employees of it, the notice can act as the antecedent that triggers the task behavior. However, it is the behavioral operant to the consequence of the behavior contingency, also known as the contingencies of reinforcement, that is more critical in determining whether employees will engage in the task behavior on future occasions. Reinforcement contingencies. A manager has the choice of 5 types of reinforcement contingencies to make employee behavior. These are positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, punishment by application, punishment by removal, and omission or extinction. First, positive reinforcement. Knowing that employees tend to repeat those behaviors that lead to positive consequences for them, a manager will use positive reinforcers whenever the employee performs the desirable behavior. A positive reinforcer is, therefore, defined as a pleasant stimulus event which is given as a consequence of a behavior and increases the probability of the future occurrence of that behavior. Thus, the 2 critical characteristics of a positive reinforcer in the work context. These are 1. The employee finds it to be a pleasant event, and the second, it increases the probability of the future occurrence of a desirable behavior when it is presented as a consequence of that behavior. The term positive reinforcer should not be confused with the term as reward. A reward is an event which is conventionally considered as a pleasant, but an employee may not find it to be a pleasant event. When a manager praises an employee following desirable behavior, the praise may be considered as a reward by the manager, but it may not act as a positive reinforcer unless the employee finds it rewarding. Furthermore, even if the employee finds the reward to be a pleasant event, it is not given in the consequence of a specific behavior to increase the probability of the future occurrence of that behavior. So we can say that all positive reinforcers are rewards, but all rewards may not be positive reinforcers. Reinforcers, positive or negative, are classified as either primary reinforcers or secondary reinforcers. Examples of primary reinforcers are, for example, food, water, and so on. These reinforcers are termed primary not because the effects of these reinforcers are not derived from the past experience of learning. The secondary reinforcers, such as job advancement, recognition, and money, derive their effects from a consistent pairing with other reinforcers in the past. Secondary reinforcement, therefore, depends on the individual employee and their past reinforcement history. Furthermore, a secondary reinforcer, for example, praise from supervisor, that is rewarding to one person may not be rewarding to another. And negative reinforcement. The second type of contingency arrangement available to the manager is negative reinforcement. Just as in the case with the positive reinforcement, this is a method of increasing the future probability of the desired behavior. In negative reinforcement, an aversive consequence is used and it leads to increasing the probability of the desired behavior in one of 2 ways, by escape and by avoidance. In this escape response, the aversive consequence is initiated in the environment when the desirable behavior is not performed and stopped only when the desirable behavior is performed. The individual performs the desired behavior in order to escape the aversive consequence, which will continue to be present in the environment until the desired behavior is performed. The second way of learning through the negative reinforcement contingency is by avoidance. In this case, the desired behavior is performed to avoid the trait of aversive consequence from being actualized when the desired behavior is not performed. In negative reinforcement, the behavior leads to a prevention of or escape from an aversive or punishing consequences, which is seen as a reinforcing, hence the increase in the future occurrence of that behavior. Negative reinforcement is used quite frequently as a control strategy in the work environment. For example, employee punctuality is often maintained by avoidance learning. The aversive event is the criticism of the office manager for being late. In order to avoid the criticism before it occurs, employees make a special effort to come work on time. In avoidance learning, through their behavior, employees prevent an aversive event from occurring. In the case of escape learning, the employee's behavior terminates an ongoing aversive event. Before we conclude this section, it is important to point out the distinction between negative reinforcement and positive reinforcement, and negative reinforcement and punishment. In both positive and negative reinforcement, the objective is to increase the future occurrence of the desired behavior. In the case of positive reinforcement, the individual performs the desired behavior to gain the pleasant consequences following the performance of the desired behavior. In the case of negative reinforcement, the individual performs the desired behavior to avoid or escape the noxious or aversive consequences. Negative reinforcement is often confused with punishment because aversive events are used in both cases to influence the behavior. However, it must be emphasized that in negative reinforcement, the aversive consequence is used to increase the future occurrence of a desired behavior. In punishment, the aversive consequence is used to decrease the future occurrence of an undesired behavior. Punishment. Another strategy for reducing the frequency of the future occurrence of undesired behavior is through the use of punishing events. The punishment contingency can be deployed in two forms. First, punishment by application, and the second, punishment by removal. In punishment by application, an aversive consequence is presented or applied following employees' undesired behavior. For example, the supervisor reprimanding the salesperson whenever they are found to be rude or impolite to customers. In punishment by removal, a positive consequence or reward is removed contingent on the employee's undesirable behavior. For example, the docking of an employee's salary every time they are absent from work or training. In general, compared to the other contingencies, the punishment contingency is considered to be less effective as a means of behavior modification. The effectiveness of punishment is questioned on several grounds. First, punishment is considered the most controversial method of behavior modification, and the technique raises several ethical questions. One of the principal objections of punishment stems from the widespread belief that it has harmful effects on employees, that is, surprises and undesirable behaviors only temporarily. Second, there are other side effects of punishment that reduce its effectiveness. Out of fear, the punished employee may avoid the manager, who is the punishing agent, and thereby impair the interpersonal relationship that is so vital to effective supervision. An employee who is punished may get angry or emotionally distressed. The emotional states of anger and fear may interfere with normal task behavior and, in fact, may result in destructive work behavior, such as vandalism and sabotage that is detrimental to the interest of the organization. Extinction or omission. While positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement can be used by managers to increase the future occurrence of a desired behavior, omission and punishment are methods available to managers to reduce the future occurrence of the undesired behavior of employees. In both the punishment by removal contingency and in the extinction contingency, we see that a reward or pleasant event is withheld. Nevertheless, there is an important difference in the reason why the reward or pleasant event is withheld. In extinction contingency, the aim is to eliminate or reduce the occurrence of a behavior which was previously reinforced with appropriate rewards. In the past, these behaviors were regarded as desirable, but now they are found to be undesirable. For this reason, the rewards that are withheld in the extinction contingency are those which were formerly reinforcers of this behavior. On the other hand, In punishment by removal, a reward is withheld because the behavior has always been regarded as undesirable and it has never been reinforced by a reward. When managers desire to employ the contingency of extinction, they should follow a three-step procedure. First, identify the specific employee behavior that is not desired. Second, identify the reinforcer that maintains the behavior. And the last one is eliminate the reinforcer so that the behavior no longer results in any pleasant consequence for the employee. Then shaping behavior. The process of training employees to engage in new pattern of responses or behaviors by reinforcing a series of successive steps which lead to the desired new behaviors called the shaping of behavior. Using the principles of behavior modification in a well-designed training program allows the manager to accomplish the shaping of the employee's behavior to meet performance standards and levels set by the organization. Shaping behavior is necessary when the behavioral response to be learned is not currently in the individual's repertoire of behaviors and when it's a fairly complex behavior. Then performance management process. Performance management is a process of planned activities to improve employee performance in organizations. Performance management should not be confused with performance evaluation. Performance management entails an ongoing cyclical process with 4 steps. 1. Identify and clarify critical aspects of employees' jobs. And 2. Setting goals and expectations. 3. Monitoring performance. And the last one, end of period formal review and preparation of the action plan for the following period. In the first step, the manager identifies all the important aspects of the job and clarifies how it is related to the goals of the organization. In the second step of the cycle is the setting of goals and expectations. It specifies how well the task must be done, the time period by which these have to be done, and the rewards such as bonus, promotion, and etc. that will follow on completion of the task within the specific time period. The third step of the performance management cycle is monitoring the performance. During this phase, the manager provides informal or formal ongoing feedback, which is to be viewed not in terms of performance evaluation, but rather as on-the-job coaching. In their coaching stance, managers are careful to create an open, relaxed atmosphere which encourages employees to seek guidance in sorting out priorities or in resolving problems. The fourth step is the formal appraisal review at the end of the predetermined performance period and development of an action plan to maintain high performance or increase poor performance. The nature of the activities in this step suggests that the manager plays the role of judge. However, considering the possibility that the employee's performance might not be up on the par or needs some improvement, it is recommended that the manager adopts a problem-solving approach. In an effective performance management process, performance evaluation results should be linked to some consequences rather than filled and stored in vain. This is indeed the basic principle of the behavioral modification. Desirable work behaviors should be rewarded and undesirable ones should be modified or eliminated. That's all that I want to say for today. Thank you.